I learned the hard way to have a lot of patience and resilience. It take time to develop anything you want to do. So I'm a very like how I say, not anxious, but I like to work a lot. I like to do a lot of stuff. But at the beginning, I was doing the same thing. So you can imagine like a young guy trying to create business. I broke like 3 times, lost a ton of money. That's why I told that it was a hard lesson, but it was also pretty good because if I didn't pass through the things I passed in those days, for sure, we would not have Buena Vista, the company, the way we manage, the way we work. So it taught me a lot.
Hello and welcome to Exchange for the People. I'm your host, Michael Verdon, and today's guest is Renato Nobile, founder and CEO of Buena Vista Capital in Brazil. Renato, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here. I read and listen to your shows all the time, follow Blackwater. So pleasure to be here.
That's very kind of you, Renato. So I kind of like to kind of dive into the deep end with my guests on this show. So the first question is typically like a very kind of personal one, which is when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, that's a tricky one, but easy to answer. I wanted to be a soccer player. So I used to play soccer when I was a kid, but I gave up to go to financial markets to study when I was 19. But I
I
love to
guess
play soccer. This was my big dream when I was a kid.
being from Brazil, the bar is pretty high, so
Oh, it is, it
the
is, it is.
finance might have been a more easier option.
Very tough, very tough. I used to play indoor soccer, then I went to play on the field, but it was very good. I love it. Teach me a lot about business as well. But it was a great ride, but I don't regret a bit to be here working in Buena Vista, doing all the stuff we're doing with ETFs.
Got it. So how did you like from kind of being, an aspiring soccer player to like, the founder and CEO of an ETF company now? Like what was your kind of career journey to get to get you to where you are right now?
So basically, when I stopped to play, I was at college doing. Actually, I went to Boston University to play soccer and to study. I was doing engineering. Then I came back to Brazil. Finished my. I changed courses to engineering to international relations, just because I was working a lot already in a tech company called Unisys. They do a lot of the systems for airports and some banks. And when I was a trainee, when I got there, you used to pass through all the areas, so you see which one is your preferred department or area to work. So when I worked at the pension fund at the company, I loved it. The equity part of that, I said, "Oh, this is what I want to do." So I want to manage money focused on equity. So that's when I started. So after working at Unisys, I founded a company in Brazil called Bullmark, which was at the beginning a big RIA, was one of the biggest RIAs in Brazil. This was from 2008 to 2015. And then I got back to asset management. We bought a company in Brazil to basically do what we're doing here at Buena Vista. It was not focused on ETFs then. I loved ETFs. We did a lot of on the RIA side using ETFs on the United States. Brazil was still a small market today, so you can imagine like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, you don't have that many products. You only had like Bovespa, plain vanilla index, and that was it. But on from on 2014, I was introduced by the people from Nasdaq to a big friend of mine now. It's called Garrett Paulela. He is one of the founders of Neos Investments, with now it's a huge company in the United States. And we did a lot of business since we first met in 2014. So we used to own a company in the United States. We sold that business and we started to do business again, Buena Vista, Neos Investments, since 2019. So been a great ride, not only doing a lot in the United States and of course here in Brazil.
It's a small, like I know Paula, so it's a small market for sure, right? The ETF space.
Oh, it is, it is, it is.
So when you kind of like when you sort of sit here chatting to me now, when you look back at your kind of your career so far, what are the kind of the learnings you've taken from it, and what advice would you give, say, your 21-year-old self now?
Oh, I learned the hard way to have a lot of patience and resilience. It take time to develop anything you want to do. So I'm very like how I say, not anxious, but I like to work a lot. I like to do a lot of stuff. But at the beginning, I was doing the same thing. So you can imagine like a young guy trying to create business. I broke like 3 times, lost a ton of money. That's why I thought that it was a hard lesson, but it was also pretty good because if I didn't pass through the things I passed in those days, for sure, we would not have Buena Vista, the company, the way we manage, the way we work. So it taught me a lot.
Having patience is a hard thing, right?
Oh yeah, so it's an easy thing when you say, "Oh, patience." Okay, patience is quite simple, but it's very hard to develop that on a daily basis.
Yeah, especially when you like, as a business owner myself, when you want everything to happen like immediately and it doesn't, it can be really frustrating. So I share your pain on that one for sure.
Yeah, and a quick story here. I learned that lesson from ETS, which was amazing. From 2014 to 2016, when I worked with Garrett a lot, not only with the big RIA we used to own in the United States, but also Recon Capital. It was his first asset management company, and I saw back then how ETF is a long term play when you are a ETF issuer. So that taught me a lot. So we're doing the same. I'm quite I it's hard to have patience when you see this market, the Brazilian market, it doubled from 2024 to 2025. But still, we want things to speed up. But it's developing that way, and we need to have a lot of patience to see like the baby steps of this market.
Yeah, no, no, definitely. So I'm guessing that a lot of people who are going to be listening to this podcast don't really know much about the ETF market in Brazil. So I'm kind of keen to get into that. But first of all, so Buena Vista, so you set it up, you're the founder. Why did you launch it? Where did the idea come from? And I guess kind of going to the patients kind of thing we talked about just there, has it lived up to your expectations so far?
It surpassed my expectations,
Okay,
which
that's
is
great.
yeah.
That's
So
good.
so it's great. So basically, a couple of different things that happens in the financial market. Basically, in Brazil, I think it's a little bit the same in Europe and United States. So basically, when somebody founds asset management firm, basically it used to be a trader or an analyst, and then he found to do the same thing he did on his previous company. So our my path is a little bit different. I always was an entrepreneur. I always was an asset manager too, analyst and asset manager, but I was an entrepreneur. So I owned a lot of business. As I said, I lost a lot of money too, but of course, thank God I earned more than I lost, which is what we do in asset management too. So that taught me a lot how to develop like a business per se. It's different than you being just an asset management firm. So that makes a lot of difference when we found a company like Buena Vista. So people ask, oh, how do you guys do so much? Because we have also a venture capital where we do investments in some startup companies, which is going very well. And of course, we're basically focused on the ETF business. So basically, I used to have a lot of companies, mainly focused in technology and always in the financial markets. Could be Brazil and also the United States, as I said. But when we sold our last business, it was 20, maybe 18 or 17. I always mix up the years. But I said to myself, said, no, now I want to do what I love is to manage money, to invest in companies, to help entrepreneurs. And that's when we founded Buena Vista. Basically, when we got all the legal documents from CVM and all that, it was 2020, and then we started the company focusing first on venture capital, then mutual fund, because we were doing a lot of business together with NEOs, but there wasn't a regulation in Brazil that allowed like ETFs to pay the dividend directly to the client's account. You could have the dividend, but it was automatically reinvested in the ETF. So January 2023, I remember this. B3, they said, oh, now it's allowed ETFs to pay dividends directly in the client's account. Then it would change everything for as our main focus at Buena Vista. So we focused a lot on developing like the cover call strategies, all these different strategies that is very new in the Brazilian market.
Gotcha. So how like you touched that like the ETFs in Brazil is not is kind of like still in its infancy. How would you say that the Brazilian ETF market compares versus the US ETF market and the European ETF market right now?
Yeah, going back a little bit, I think the financial market in Brazil, it's very, very well developed in terms of technology, security, and all of that. It's amazing how much the Brazilians invest in technology. You can see like Nubank, it's a huge bank at trading. At Nasdaq, we have some of that too. So Brazil, it's always like the United States, like 20, maybe 25, 30 years behind when you talk about financial markets. So it was the
20
same like
25 years behind.
yes, 25 years behind. So basically you can see what happened in the United States and you can try to replicate that. You can see that with the independent platforms like the XP, BTG. There's a ton already in Brazil, but this started only in 2010. Before 2010, it was only like the big financial institutions having all the assets over there. Then came the independent platforms. So basically, still today, all the advisors they work on a commission based structure. But since last year, they're starting to shift to fee based. Again, this happened already a lot of years behind in the United States on the past. So basically, what happened now, people are saying, oh, now I can have whatever fund I need using any platform I want. Now they're looking to service, and the advisor is looking what is the best product in terms of cost efficiency, transparency, liquidity, all of that. And of course, ETF is the must go when you see these key issues in the market. So basically, the first ETF in Brazil started in maybe 20 years ago, 20 to 20 years, 21 years ago. Leo, that introduced us, was the guy that worked on that project. The ETF still exists at Itaú. It's called PIBB, but it was basically developed to give access to clients that wanted to invest in equities in Brazil. So 21 years, it's a long time.
Wow.
But if you see in terms of like how a client can access different kinds of strategies using ETFs, this only happened like maybe 2.5 since 2023 with the ETFs that we launched. Nubank also launched different products, Itaú and all the other ETF issuers. So if you think in terms of size, like 2024, the ETF market was maybe almost 50 billion reais under management. Okay. 1 year, and it's already in 110 billion reais. So it doubled a year for another. My expectation, our number is around 300 billion this year. So it's going to be triple.
Wow.
So you can see the movement towards ETF starting to shift. We are seeing a lot of US ETF issuers talking to people in Brazil, trying to bring their business over here. Also, the active mutual fund managers are discussing too, oh, how can I bring this strategy into an ETF wrapper? So all the movement that we saw in the United States, like maybe 10, 20 years ago, it's starting to happen in the Brazilian market. So the
And
trend is happening.
and can you like cross list a US domiciled ETF into Brazil, or do you need to kind of like does it need to be locally domiciled?
So it must be locally. So basically, there's two ways you can do it. One is the BDR, same thing as the ADR in the United States. So you can have the BDR receipt using the ETF in the United States, but there's a lot of costs involved. It's not a very efficient product when you compare to a local ETF. So what you can do is list the ETF locally, and you can buy the ETF offshore or even different kind of strategies, or you can build one from scratch. We also have some of that too.
Gotcha. And the kind of the typical ETF buyer, are they buying just kind of like vanilla type products, or is it becoming quite more the kind of what we're seeing now, like active? Because I don't think active ETFs allowed in Brazil, or not yet.
Not yet. There's a lot
Not
of
yet.
discussions towards that, but not yet. But even though you know this pretty well, but even though you need to have like an index for the ETF in Brazil, you need to be an index ETF. You can do a lot of stuff in the index, like
Yeah.
characteristics of an active product. So we can do that a lot. So basically, now we have maybe I forgot the exact number of ETF, but probably a little bit more than 200 already ETFs. You have a lot of the passive plain vanilla like S&P, Nasdaq, Bovespa, small caps. But now you see more of this like active ETFs, the same that
Yeah.
we have at Buena Vista and some other ETF issuers too.
Got it. And what about the kind of the crypto adoption in Brazil? What's the market like for that?
So that's quite of a funny story. So Brazil is like one of the top players in this industry because actually the first ETF in the world was traded in Brazil, the crypto one, which is the Hash 11, which is from
Really?
our
Hashtags,
part
yeah, yeah.
hashtags. Yeah, they're big partners of us. We do a lot together. And they launched the first one on 2021. That's amazing. It was the first one. United States only launched it in 2024. So took more time to develop that. So Brazilians, they love crypto. Just so you know, our largest ETF at Buena Vista is it's Coin 11, which is the Bitcoin using covered call to pay income. Just
Wow.
as a difference, the largest product we have at Neos, it's QQQI, which is the Nasdaq 100 with covered call strategy. Just a different. We have basically the same products, but the profile of the Brazilians, they love crypto. Brazil is very the Brazilian investors, they love crypto. They adopt it very well.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that. And what about like in terms of the kind of the typical like fund buy or like ETF buyer in Brazil? Is it mainly kind of like an institutional wholesale market, or is retail becoming like a bigger portion of the pie right
So
now?
that's a very good question, and I'm gonna split it in two different answers. So first one, if you have the big ETFs, the largest, it's the Bovespa, okay, which is BOVA 11, owned by iShares BlackRock. You also have IVVB, which is the same iShares too, and the third one is Small 11, which is the local small caps. Those three basically are 70% of all the volume, and it's used a lot. I would guess probably 80% is just institution. So the institution, they use this a lot to trade these three specific products. When you go to all the other products, then you're going to see a lot of retail buying these products to have exposure to these different kind of strategies, and not that many institutions yet, but it's starting to change. We're seeing more of assets fund managers talking more. Oh, how can I use ETFs in some of the strategies I already have, even being an active manager, and also the pension funds. Still, there's some limitations for pension funds to use ETFs in Brazil, but it's also a lot of discussion to change that. So we should see in the near future a lot of institutions using ETFs to build their strategies.
Got it. Interesting. And then in terms of retail specifically, like what's the kind of general like awareness of ETFs and crypto? Are they like is a well educated market, or is the bar still pretty low?
No, the bar is very low. Just so you know, when we launch our first product, SPYI 11, which is the S&P 500 with the covered call strategy paying income, we like built a big Q&A in our website to explain how is the product, because it was the first covered call product in the market. So to explain to the investors, no. Do you know the common questions we get at Buena Vista? Oh, I'm going to the fund platform at XP or BTG and I cannot find your ETF. It's in the home broker. You need to trade it. So that's the number one question. The other question is, how does it work? How can I sell this product? What is the tax I need to pay? So education is key in the local market, and not only towards the investors, also to the advisors, because a lot of the advisors, they used to be like sell side commission based. They just sell products to the investor.
Yeah.
So now they're seeing, oh, I'm changing towards fee based, and I need to understand the entire asset allocation and how can I use ETFs now that everything is changing. So a lot of education.
So because of that, are you seeing kind of like advisors embrace ETFs more, or do they still pivot more towards mutual funds where obviously they're receiving commission off any sales they make?
They use much more mutual funds. Just so you know the number, the entire fund industry must be around something 12 to 13 trillion reais. It's quite big. ETF is a little bit less, or hitting 1% of the entire market. So still very small, but growing. So what's happening now? They still use more of the mutual funds, but they're starting to use more ETFs. And there's a couple reasons. Not only the fee base, so maybe a year and a half, something like that, started to have more fixed income ETFs in the local market. And fixed income is huge in Brazil because we have still high interest rates over here. And so they're starting to launch more and more of the fixed income products. So there's a lot happening that the advisors are seeing a lot of benefits to use ETFs.
Got it. Got it. So when you kind of like look into your crystal ball, how do you see, and you kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, like how do you see the market developing in say the next 5 years?
Oh, 5 years. I like that question. I think so let's go with the numbers. I think it's gonna be 300 billion the end of this year. In 5 years, I'm pretty sure we will surpass more than a trillion reais under management for ETFs. I think it still is a small market with just a few ETF issuers, but we're gonna see more and more launches of ETFs. This is already happening. Last year was a record. This year is going to be a record by far because there's much more launches. There was much more launches on the first quarter than the last year. So I think also the number of ETF issuers, the number of ETFs is going to be way, way higher.
So you think because like right now, it's basically dominated by local players. Like none of the big ETF managers, well, to the best of my knowledge, have like locally listed ETFs in Brazil. Do you expect that to change? So you're going to get the Vanguards, the State Streets, the BlackRocks, etc., start to enter the market more.
Yes. A couple things on that information. The biggest ETF issuer in Brazil is BlackRock iShares, which they own the three largest ETFs. So they're here. They're
They're
they're,
already
they're not
there.
invest. Yeah, they're here from a long time already. So they're the biggest by far, and they own the top the most liquid also ETFs in the local market. And we're seeing a lot of movements on their side. They have a new CEO that they just hired the past 2 years, so they're changing, they're investing, they're doing a lot of events towards education. We also have Itaú, which is almost the same size as BlackRock. They're our largest bank in Brazil. They're huge and they're investing a lot also in the ETF space. All the other big institutions are also investing in ETFs. So we have BTG Pactual, we have XP, we have Bradesco, we have Nubank doing a lot of that. And there's also another big player from the US in the market. There was an independent company in Brazil called Investo, still here called Investo, but Vanek bought them late 2024, if I'm not mistaken. So Vanek
Okay.
has a presence here using Investo. And what we're seeing now is a lot of discussions from the big institutions in the United States. Just so you know, JP Morgan also launched JEPI, which is their largest active ETF in Brazil too. So there's a lot of moving parts from the big players in the United States happening.
And you expect the kind of the path that which all of them will follow will they'll just start launching locally listed
Yeah, I think
or locally
I think
domiciled products.
yes, that's a very good question. So basically, they started like Global X. They also have presence here, but they
Yeah.
only use BDRs. You have JP Morgan now that they are only using BDRs. And why? My opinion, this is just my opinion. I think they're using BDRs because it makes more sense on a tiny market. We're talking about 100 billion reais. When you exchange that to USD, it's tiny compared to what they have globally. So I think once the market starts to grow more, I think they're
Mm.
gonna have a local presence. Then it's gonna have make a lot of sense for them to have a local structure, asset management focused on ETFs.
More competition for you, so
Yeah, but it's quite good because if you see, it's a small market. As I was talking to you before we started to record, I think 16 asset managers. If Itaú is talking about ETFs, I'm also over here applauding because some of that flow is also going to go to Buena Vista because it's so small. All the 16 working together is better for the entire market.
it's kind of like rising tide lifts all boats, right? So the bigger the market gets, like the bigger the bigger the pie gets, right? So it's
That
ultimately
that
good
that's
for
a
the market.
better analogy.
Yeah. So you've alluded to the fact that you're kind of like a serial entrepreneur. You've done different things over the course of your career. So my last question for you is, if you weren't doing what you're doing right now, then what would you do with your life?
Oh, for sure, I would doing some kind of business, investing in a company or developing a new company. That's for sure. Can't stop.
You just have that entrepreneurial flame within you, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know if you know this too. We launched a company. We started to develop this company last year. We launched it February, which is called DEX ETFs, which is like an ecosystem for ETFs. As you know, Blackwater is a big example. We looked into it when we were developing because there was no like media focusing just on ETFs, like ETFs.com or Blackwater focusing on research. So we developed DEX to have the entire ecosystem. So now what we're doing at DEX, it's totally independent of Buena Vista. We just built the company. We funded the company as like a VC, and we of course helped to hire and develop the business. But it's basically an ecosystem to help the entire market, from the ETF issuer to the advisor and also the investor. So basically what we're doing a lot of education, so certification for the Brazilian market, doing media, customized index development for also ETF issuers, data and events. So we launched that to help also develop the entire ecosystem. And I told you this because you asked what I was gonna do, so can't stop. I love this.
Where, where do you get the time to do it all?
I love it. I love it. I really don't, but I love it. It's like 24/7.
Well, I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope to keep in touch. So Renato, thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.